Recording. So everybody, just so you know that in that box in the right hand upper corner, there is a place where you can submit your questions, and we will be staying until they're all answered. You can submit them throughout the session, but we plan to answer and address them all at the end of the webinar, and that's when we will announce the 5 winners of our 5 free financial social work certifications. And as promised, we have a surprise for all of our attendees today. So let's get started. Okay, financial literacy, past, present, and future. Traditionally, when I am doing my own webinars, sometimes we do have guest speakers. A few weeks ago, we had Dr. Marty Gillen from the University of Florida speak on the basics of investing. That recording is on the websites. In January, I did one on Everyone Has a Money Story. How well do you know yours? That recording is on the website also. And last month I did My Money Myself and My Money and Everyone Else, and we were looking at financial boundaries. So I tend to traditionally do more elusive aspects of money at our webinars, but to celebrate Financial Literacy Month, I decided to focus on financial literacy. Once I have an idea on what webinar I'd like to do, it's always interesting to me what that process looks like. And very often what I anticipated our doing or what that webinar would look like is very, very different. And this is absolutely the case with today's webinar, because there isn't really a tremendous amount of research available on the history of financial literacy. It was one of the few times that I typed something into Google and didn't have any real hits that I felt would be useful for this presentation. So I was pretty much on my own, and as I proceeded, it just took on a life of its own. So I hope you all, will feel that you are getting everything that you had hoped for. I think you will, and I think you'll get even more. So, past, present, and future. It would make sense, of course, to begin with the history, the past of financial literacy. So, as everyone on this call must know, this country's financial landscape is forever changing. And of course, the result of that is that we as consumers and as educators and providers, we need to know what that looks like. And of course, we work really hard at the Center for Financial Social Work to provide you and to simplify that process of your knowing the newest and most important things that are happening. This changing financial landscape is making it much more difficult for many Americans to achieve the American dream. And recent articles that have come across my desk and computer, and that we share with you all the time on Twitter and in our twice monthly newsletter, address the fact that the American dream is changing. But I've always felt that the American dream really is very fluid and adaptable, and that each person has his or her own vision of what that looks like. And I felt that this slide would help you to think more about the fact that it isn't a one-size-fits-all. So why is the American dream so elusive? Why is the financial landscape changing so much? Well, if you care to share your thoughts on that, you can. I would guess that many of you would attribute it to the Great Recession, which statistically because recessions are evaluated in hindsight. So it is said that the Great Recession has ended. Of course, I heard some different versions of that on NPR this weekend, and I don't feel that based on how people are telling me things are going for them or in their agencies or with their clients, that it has ended. And I did hear several predictions just this weekend on a double dip recession. But, you know, I think that equally as important, and I think that one of the major causes of the Great Recession was and remains financial illiteracy. And I would guess that all of you on the call would probably agree with me on that. Poverty and money problems have been culturally, systemic, and socially endemic for decades. They've been around. They aren't new. They aren't the outcome of this Great Recession. But they are an outcome of financial illiteracy. And the economic stressors that triggered this Great Recession have caused the need for social supports and services to soar and their availability to plummet, demonstrating that subsidies aren't sufficient, aren't forever, and definitely are not a long-term solution to poverty. And so, although this wasn't part of my original plan for this webinar, it seemed to make sense to briefly look at how we've addressed poverty and people living in poverty and those issues surrounding poverty in the past. And so beginning with the Great Depression in the 1930s, social services were provided through the welfare system. And those services originally were open-ended, providing that safety net that Americans needed. But we know that that's changed, and the predominant change was in 1996 with welfare reform, better or also, maybe not better known, but also known as the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, and that was during the Clinton administration. And so that gave control of welfare to the states. That was a very big shift. And another big shift was it provided short-term cash assistance. So the framework was definitely changing, and change it has. So this whole past, present, and future, I discovered, could not really be segmented in a very linear way. So while I say we're moving on to the present, you will see some dates here that are more indicative of the past, but this is the best way I could do it. So we're kind of moving from the past to the present, but also utilizing the past as a part of this present. So I love having the opportunity to share with our audience and get your input on various pieces. I only came up with two polls today, but these are anonymous, and I would really welcome your participation. All you have to do is click on which of these you think is the best fit and name for the work we do with clients to help them to become more money-wise. Very interesting. Okay, about 50, almost 60% of you have voted. I'm going to give you another few seconds. You need your vote to count. Okay, we're at 78%. Want to get us over 80. And then I will show you the results. And we can hold on to those results as we move forward. If you're going to vote, go ahead and do it now. And I'm going to count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we will close the poll, and I will share the poll with you. Keep in mind that I can't see the same thing you're seeing, but there is an overwhelming belief and comfort and loyalty to the term financial education. And I know that, well, it's really interesting that the fewest of you went for financial literacy. I find that pretty interesting, mostly because of all the research I did in putting together this webinar, and how prevalent the term financial literacy is. And I only added financial self-sufficiency and economic self-sufficiency kind of at the end, because I know that there are numerous programs across the country that use that terminology. And clearly, financial self-sufficiency is right up there. You know, it's a good distance from financial education. Well, thanks, everybody, for sharing. That's pretty insightful to me. And I need to remember here to hide that poll. And we can continue. Okay, so financial literacy, financial education, financial capability. That's what we're talking about. So financial literacy means having the knowledge and the competency in a particular subject or area. In this case, of course, well, literacy. I added the financial there. Literacy means having knowledge and competency in a particular subject or area. And of course, in this particular case, we're talking about literacy with money management basics. Then financial education is that method. This is my interpretation of everything I read and from various websites. Wikipedia had a few things, and they didn't necessarily agree with this, but for me, I think that, you know, literacy is having the knowledge, and education is the method for helping people to develop that knowledge. And for me, whenever I talk about poverty or below the poverty line, or people struggling with financial problems and issues, they're somewhat interchangeable across this webinar, because people with financial problems have similar challenges that they face. Okay, so April is National Financial Literacy Month in the United States, and we do this in this country to show an awareness for the relevance and importance of financial literacy and education, and it is used very much so by certain nonprofits, organizations, and banks to provide information to their clients. And the best I could come up with was that Jumpstart Coalition for Personal Financial Literacy began promoting April as Financial Literacy Month for youth. So it began with a youth slant. Now, Jumpstart does focus on money education for young people. So, of course, that would make sense. But in 2003, the Senate designated April as Financial Literacy for Youth Month. And then in March 2004, the Senate passed Resolution 316, officially recognizing April as National Financial Literacy Month. So we've had a National Financial Literacy Month, which has grown and changed and certainly expanded in the last 8 years. And this particular graphic kind of makes me smile because I imagine it's of a website that was going to add a financial literacy component, but financial literacy coming soon. It can never come too soon, that's for sure. We're way late as it is. So, as I was saying, financial institutions and not-for-profits celebrate Financial Literacy Month with programs and events and creating educational materials for their clients, their customers, their consumers. And so to that end, it certainly serves a purpose. Now, this was of great interest to me that this year, President Obama changed the wording from financial literacy to financial capability. Now, only 13% of you stated that you felt financial capability was, the best description for the work we do. And I have to be honest with you, that term has been around for a few years, at least probably 4 or 5, and I was a little reluctant to embrace it myself when I first heard of it. But it is the direction that all of this work is moving towards, and I have come to appreciate and embrace the terminology, and I will be addressing that a few slides from now. But on January 29th in 2010, 2 years ago, the President created the Advisory Council on Financial Capability. But most of all, this was the only graphic I could find on financial capability. And the fact that so many banks and newspapers and not-for-profit organizations were all focused on Financial Literacy Month, myself included. I did not call this financial capability, past, present, and future. So I found that very interesting. Apparently, most of us did not get that memo, but it is the direction we're going in, and we're going to go into greater detail with that in a few minutes. Okay, so we talked about how the country... Olga, I think your microphone is picking up some other noises. You might want to mute it. Thanks. Okay. Well, okay. According to the World Bank Institute, financial literacy is primarily concerned with the knowledge of how to best manage one's finances. It provides information and cultivates understanding. And I found this particularly interesting because as we go deeper into this, you'll come to understand, and those of you who are students and graduates and are members of our community, you know that I feel very strongly that all of this work is behaviorally based. So I found it pretty interesting that the World Bank focused on the fact that financial literacy is concerned with affecting behavior. It's a good thing. It's definitely a good thing. I don't necessarily agree that that's happening, but I would like to see it happen. So traditional financial education classes are very challenging, and they're mandated in some cases for certain programs, but they're consistently difficult to recruit for, and recruitment often demands providing food, transportation, and child care to allow traditional not-for-profit program clients to be able to attend. But financial education, and again, in most cases that I came across, financial education and financial literacy were very interchangeable. But financial literacy, financial education, that's what's considered the standard by which financial success, financial programs within organizations and agencies measure their outcomes. So we already talked about the fact that recruitment is very challenging, and I learned that early on from so many of our students working at Invita sites, where they tried so much to engage clients to be active participants in some of the financial education programs, and that's just not what clients were interested in doing. So most of us would know that mandating creates more resistance and ill will than involvement, enthusiasm, or active participation. And you can see that up close and personal when eyes glaze over and resistance, you can feel it in the air, because no one wants to be told that they have to do anything. And the reality is that if someone isn't genuinely excited and engaged at the prospect of being able to create a better financial future, it's not terribly likely that that outcome will be achieved. So this graphic I found gives you an overview of what this particular organization felt were the essentials of financial literacy. And it's not terribly clear, and you may have to squint a little to see the various topics, but as you go through them, if you think about your clients and how engaged or interested they would be in investment risk, leverage, liquidity management, all of the cash flow topics, are they important? Absolutely. Are they the key to helping clients to change their financial behavior? Not really. And again, we're going to be looking at that more in a few slides. So that's kind of my past and present pieces. And now we're going to move on to the future. And I do think past is experience, present is somewhat experiment, and we've been talking about how different ways we look at the way we're doing financial education and literacy today. And I couldn't exactly find future expectations, so kind of took this in a way that I'm going to share with you now. On that self-sufficiency and economic self-sufficiency piece that I told you I had added to that first poll, it came about from this particular graphic, which I find very interesting because it really, again, I know it's not the clearest graphic, but it does look at not every component of what would be part of a client, particularly someone living below the poverty line, the things that the clients would need to navigate. But I think that it does clearly demonstrate a more comprehensive look at what is economic self-sufficiency. But we won't be spending any more time on this particular concept. Instead, we're moving on to financial capability, which, according to the World Bank Institute, is similar to financial literacy in that it includes information and knowledge elements, but they see financial capability. The difference is the distinctly at its core, it emphasizes attitude and behavior change. Now that's where I become very excited about the difference in using this terminology. And I have a few more slides for you on financial capability. These I've kind of garnered from over the past year or so about how financial capability is measured. And it's measured in terms of how well people make ends meet, plan ahead, choose and manage financial products, and possess and utilize the skills and knowledge to make financial decisions. I think those are really important concepts and pieces of this whole puzzle. And again, that it makes financial capability not only a more positive framing of the work, capability, well, I think everyone likes to feel capable, so I think that's good. And then, more specifically, I heard that financial capability incorporates literacy. Okay, that makes sense. Savings. All right, that's different. Access. Well, most of us know the difficulties of reaching and helping the unbanked and the underbanked. So access obviously is an important piece of it. Consumer protection. I particularly like that and hope that all of you on the call are familiar with the Financial Consumer Protection Bureau and the wonderful work that they're trying to do, part of the credit card reform of 2009. And here's the best one, behavior. Now, this was the order that I heard it described with. And by the time we finish here, you'll know that I would prefer to put behavior at the top. But I think I could probably add a few more bullets here. But this is, I think, a great beginning and an important way of thinking about this. So I guess if next year I wanted to do something along these lines to update this webinar, I would guess I'm going to have to call it Financial Capability, Past, Present, and Future. We'll have to see about that. So, some more from the World Bank. This I find really interesting. There is a substantive movement online, particularly towards teaching young people about money, and young is probably a relative term, but through games, a lot of gaming websites, comic books, a lot of exciting things going on to educate young people about money. This particular piece of the World Bank website was focusing on Africa, but I felt that it's so transferable to what we're doing here. This one, school-based financial education programs, believe it or not, I should have done, this would have been a good poll, but I don't have it for you, so we'll have to, I'll just share with you that there are 13 states that require students to take a personal finance course or include that subject in an economics course that students are required to take before they leave high school. So that's up from 7 states. So it's almost twice as many in the past 5 years. Now, there are other states that, I don't know, quasi-mandated. In other words, want schools to provide this information, but don't provide any funding for it. Pretty interesting. And this is one of the more interesting pieces. The direction that we're moving in this country towards using cell phones. Statistics apparently show that just about everyone owns a cell phone. And they're certainly not all smartphones, but people own cell phones. And in this particular abstract on the slide, it talks, I believe, about text messaging people when their bills are due. And I know of some programs in this country where they people can sign up to get motivational texts about money. But the big movement is in reaching the unbanked and underbanked in this country on this topic of financial literacy or capability. It's pretty fascinating. And I think it's mostly in some fairly early stages of research. The other piece of that is, of course, that cell phones are being used already. They're replacing credit cards and checks and will continue to expand as that replacement. That is a specific goal of certain companies. And actually, yesterday I heard on NPR one of the founders of Twitter, and he's now the CEO of a company called Square, which I had never heard of, but which is doing gigando business, bringing in a lot of money, and it is about using your cell phone not only as a credit card and payment. It can be used by entrepreneurs or small companies. You can get a free attachment that immediately allows you to take payments through Square. And but this was the piece that kind of got to me, and I should have actually done a poll asking you what you think of this, because with this service, as a consumer, this freaks me out. You can, if you are within a certain distance, and I don't know if it's, I don't remember if it's 10 or 20 feet from a cash register, but that register, if they are a Square business, a Square company, that register will recognize you and bring up your picture and your bio. And I don't remember what other contact information, but it will allow you not to have a credit card or a cell phone or anything else. I guess you have to have your cell phone in the pocket, but it just recognizes you, and you just can order a latte. Now, I know that I need to get moving because I'm not sure I want to get finished and announce our winners and our surprise. So I won't spend a lot more time on this, but I do really have a lot of issues with this. I didn't attribute the financial problems in this country in that earlier slide to our disconnect from money, but I think that is a huge, huge problem between credit cards, debit cards, having our salaries direct deposited to the bank. We are very disconnected from our money, and I see this, particularly Square, being another way to disconnect from our money, and I find that really troublesome. And I should have found out what you thought. Okay. So the Department of Treasury financial capability strategy is to take an evidence-based approach, but there is a dearth of substantive research, so certainly it makes sense to build on what's already working and to focus on where it's needed most and to work to increase access and to partner with local and state governments, private and nonprofit sectors. That's their broad overview, and if you were interested, you could find the details of each of these bullets on their website. What I was thinking about on this piece about focusing on where it's needed most, of course, now I'm doing this webinar, I think of all these great polls that I couldn't think of before, because I know I had too many choices here. I wanted to ask who you think needs it most. Because I don't think there's really, just 2 or 3 answers to that question, certainly not just one. Yes, we want to reach traditionally underserved. We want to reach those living in poverty. We want to reach the elderly who are so easily scammed and too often scammed. College students desperately need this information. Middle-class America needs it to not slip further down the socioeconomic scales. But banks need to know more about their customers. They need to be willing to be more helpful to the underserved. And I think employers need to know how these financial problems are impacting their employees. And of course, those employees. And we're going to look a little bit more at the workplace and at how it impacts the home life too. And so this is from a very interesting blog, the Center for Financial Inclusion. And they had some very interesting things on there. Very good information. Of course, I like that they include behavior change and the client perspective. And I think that's vastly important, as you'll see in a few minutes. Okay, so financial literacy, education, and capability. We're different. We're the same. We're all wonderful. Well, I might just say that we're all trying to be wonderful, at least. And, are they interchangeable? I can't really answer that. But I do have one more poll for you. So let's go ahead and I will share that with you. I'm asking you to give a grade on how well you think we as a country, you as an organization, whichever resonates most for you, how well you think we're doing at helping those who need help to learn more about taking control of their money and gaining control of their lives. Okay. About 44% of you. Okay. 60% of you have voted. Okay, 77%. Okay, we're over 80. If anybody else wants to vote, go ahead. Not a huge disparity here, but some differences of opinion. Okay, I'll count it down. 5, 4, 3, 2. You want to get me to 90%? We're at 87, no? 3, 2, 1. Okay, we finished at 87% of voting, and I will close it, and I will share it with you. So no one thinks we're doing great. 7% think we're doing okay, and the majority of you feel we're doing poorly. But second is the fact that we're doing fair. It was certainly a very broad request, but I appreciate your sharing it and hope that you enjoyed being a part of that poll. And we will go back here. So when I was trying to figure out where to go next with this. I couldn't exactly tell you what anybody else planned to do around financial capability and literacy in the future. So having spent the past 15 years creating financial social work, I decided that I would share with you, again, this was not where I expected to take it, but I would share with you what I know. And this graphic kind of indicates my bringing together, existing knowledge and my experience and what I hear from our students, our graduates, and our general financial social work community, and kind of analyzing all of that. So here's what I know. Well, I thought maybe for those of you who are new to financial social work, I would just put this up really quickly to give you an idea of why you might care, what it is I know, and all the things that I've done to learn all of that and to get to know all of it. So I'm not going to spend any more time on that. Here's what I know. That financial literacy, education, capability, it isn't working. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I did not close your poll. So, yes, I did. Okay. Okay. So I believe, Olga, can everybody see the slides? Oh, she's muted.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. I got a little confused there. Okay.
No problem.
Thank you. It isn't working. And when 47% of you said that we were doing poorly, 18% thought very poorly, I'm going to guess that you agree with me. And certainly, I want to say it isn't a judgment, but clearly it is a judgment. But I just think that there's so much more that we could do and we should do and we need to do. And, I spend all of my time trying to figure out what that looks like, what it is, and how to accomplish it. So just in case you're questioning me, last week on Moneyland, under their financial education heading, they indicated that of the 28 nations that Visa ranked, according to their financial literacy knowledge and skills and commitment, actually, to financial education, the U.S. finished 4th. They were behind Brazil and Mexico, but everyone failed. Wow, I just think that that is so telling. Okay, so here's what I know, that regardless of what we call it, there needs to be a change in the conversation. And maybe financial capability is a really good start to do that. But we need a different way of thinking, of looking at the situation and the problems and the challenges. And we definitely, absolutely, positively need a better way of working with clients. So here's what I know and why I think that. Taking greater responsibility for your financial future requires more than just learning new financial skills. Why? Because it's a process. It's not, we want to measure success in our financial education classes, and too often we do that by number of clients served, when that's really not very indicative of anything having to do with knowledge learned. So this isn't something with a beginning, a middle, or an end. It's an ongoing process because financial stability is a very, very incredibly personal, individual, and emotional choice. And we have to do it day by day, week by week, month by month, sometimes hour by hour or minute to minute. And so this is part of a process, and we, as well as clients, need more support to be successful. Here's what I know. People with financial problems are at much greater risk for divorce, depression. They have more legal problems, less stable social systems. And whether, some of you may know this, but we were given bankruptcy reform in 2005, a very dark day in my opinion, but we were given it under the misrepresentation of all these people that were out spending all this money on credit cards and never planning to use them. I've worked with hundreds of thousands of people. I've been fortunate. I've met people with that intention, but the majority of people certainly that I know and that I've worked with and trained and the ones we've certified, that's not at all what it's about. And for your information, the top 3 reasons that people file bankruptcy have nothing to do with credit cards. And those of you on the call probably know that number 1 is illness and medical bills, job loss, number 2, and number 3 is divorce. So I do know that people with financial problems are at much greater risk for many other problems and at greater risk for a wide range of unhealthy feelings, which only feed that kind of behavior, the wrong kind of behavior. And most of all, they're at risk for hopelessness. And I know I have a slide that will show this, but it's very important to me that I'm always pointing out that hope opens the door to change and hopelessness closes it. And we need to open that door and keep that door open. And here's what I know. The psychosocial component, meaning the thoughts, feelings, and attitudes that we have about money, they're foundational to change, and until and unless behavior changes, nothing changes. And so this work must really be about behavioral change. And here's what I know. Poverty and financial problems are far too complex for a one-size-fits-all solution. People come to these problems from many, many different perspectives and aspects and experiences. Certainly the one with the diploma over that big pile of money. I'm sure most of you know that in 2010, school loans, school debt surpassed credit card debt. That holds true ever since then. And it's having a serious impact on the economy and a really horribly negative impact on the young people starting out with that much debt. I guess that should be a webinar for another time, so let's keep going. So here's what I know. Men and women living in poverty or experiencing financial problems really don't take good care of themselves and don't do the work needed to improve their circumstances, their situations, because it's so overwhelming. It's very overwhelming, and there really aren't that many places to go. I mean, your choices really are consumer credit counseling at one end of the continuum and bankruptcy at the other. And of course, we have wonderful not-for-profits in this country, but lots of people don't qualify for them, don't access them. So that's something I know. And I also know that poverty reduces the ability to think clearly and increases the potential to, again, do all kinds of behaviors that aren't in your best interest. We'd like to think it was different, but this is the reality. So people need help. And that's because each of us and each of our clients views life through our own unique lens. We're each very different, and that's where, that one-size-fits-all isn't the approach that's going to create change. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. And of course, when we're living in poverty and when we have financial problems, it's very hard to change that perspective. And it's important to understand that. So clients who have lived this way are comfortable living this way. They're not going to jump at the opportunity. Or they're not likely to jump at the opportunity to participate in the programs we offer. And for me, I know that a lot of this is about poor sense of self, low self-esteem, no self-confidence, no financial self-confidence. I've blogged about that on my blog. They don't trust the system, and they're resistant to change. You know, most people want change, but only if it's guaranteed to be change for the better and if it's not too hard to accomplish. So here's what I know. Clients often, are very challenging to engage and are less likely to follow through. So just offering, 6, 8, or 10 weeks of classes isn't going to, get us the outcomes we're really looking for, or to help the clients in the way that they need help. And here's what I know is that clients practice higher risk behavior when they're under a lot of financial stress. And here's what I know, that getting from here to there, moving from poverty or from the stress of financial problems and struggles, having no or low assets or living in debt, to having assets, to building a better financial future, that's not an overnight process. It's an overtime process. It absolutely can be accomplished, but it really demands knowing and understanding how you got where you are today. That's important. There are lessons to be learned from that. And then knowing where you want to be in the future, because that provides and allows the opportunity for the professionals, those of us on this call, to be able to work with the client to create a strategy and a plan for success. And getting from here to there is a journey which requires learning skills and tools for creating sustainable, long-term financial behavioral change. That is the mission of my work and the Center for Financial Social Work, and I think it's the outcome that all of us are really looking for. And I can't go into greater detail because our time is definitely flying by, and I want to share with you these other slides I have. So certain steps must be taken on this journey to sustainable long-term financial behavioral change. And the number one step is engaging the client. If we don't engage the client, then we have nothing to do because the client isn't going to be participating or attending. And so how do we do that? We do that by helping the client to understand WIIFM, and that would be what's in it for me. And the reason that's important is because clients are the people who know what motivates them better than anyone else. And I really think it's our job to find out what that is, what motivates each client, because that is absolutely the very best way to engage a client and to have the tools on our end to keep the client engaged and on track for success. And here's what I know. Financial problems jeopardize home and work life. They jeopardize thinking, relationships, and behavior. And I honestly know, have seen, and trust that clients can and will do money differently and better when they understand why it's important to them, why it matters, and when they have the skills and the tools, but also the insight and the understanding that makes it relevant to them. Again, not something that happens overnight, but that absolutely happens over time. And I like this little graphic because it's kind of a softer, gentler, more comprehensive approach to the work that we need to do with clients. I promise you we're coming to the end. Financial problems and issues are enduring challenges which result from specific patterns of behaviors, and we need to connect clients to their hopes, dreams, and wishes. That would be the piece of what's in it for me, because clients need to know that they really can do things better and have a better future, and we can help them. And I am a huge believer in self-assessment. I think it is the gift that keeps on giving, because when a client can assess his or her progress, success, he or she might make a poor choice or decision, but now knows that that's a poor choice or decision, is far more likely to make a better one in the future. Makes sense to me, and I hope it makes sense to you. So, if I can get my slides going here. Okay.
Yeah, I got.
Okay, so here's what I know. Clients need hope. And I told you this earlier, hopelessness closes the door to change and hope opens it. So my own definition for financial capability would be helping clients to create sustainable long-term financial behavioral change. What would that look like? This is what it looks like in my opinion and for my work. And I know people have to get back to their jobs, so I'm kind of going to fly through these last few slides to announce our winners. It's definitely about, as this last graphic shows, for me that represents being at peace with your money. What a great place to be. So I think we'll skip that. Here's what I know clients need to know. They are where they are because they didn't plan to be anywhere else. But to have better and different outcomes in the future requires changing behavior today. And that they have the right, the ability, and responsibility to achieve their personal hopes, dreams, and wishes. So these are all very important pieces, and I'm sure I'll touch on them in future webinars. But here's what I know. There is always hope. And it's important to bring that into all the work you do with clients and to live it yourself and to help clients to know it deep down inside. So everything I just shared with you is what I've learned while I created financial social work. Our model is ongoing education, motivation, and support. And it is a behavioral model, and of course that's because I think behavior is so crucial to everything we do with money, and it is interactive, introspective, strength-based, and heavily psychosocial, and it's designed to facilitate making that choice. This is that choice that each one of us and each of our clients has, is to take greater responsibility for creating a better personal and financial future. Remember, we make it minute to minute, hour by hour, day by day. And so it's always about addressing the thoughts, feelings, and attitudes that are a foundation for our relationship with money. Our relationship with money drives our financial behavior, and our financial behavior determines our financial circumstances. Tomorrow we're going to release our first ever ebook. It's called Financial Social Work Basics and Best Practices. If you register for our newsletter on our website sometime today, before the end of today, you will receive that announcement tomorrow to be the first people to download it. It is free. You'll just have to put in your email address. Okay, so at its core, financial social work is about personal, professional, financial, and social change, and was created based on these rocks, which I did not paint, but it's a great graphic that I found based very much on traditional social work ethics and values. It's about working with the individual and how that benefits the family, the social environment, the workplace, and the whole community. Our graduates work in many different settings. They work across this country and around the world. It's all very exciting for me. We also have a client program called Taking Charge of Your Money, Your Life, and Your Future, and it's used by agencies in case management models, in private practice models, in mentoring models, and in psychoeducational groups. It eliminates the need to have to recreate the wheel within an agency. That's all on our website. So here we are at the end of the webinar before we announce our 5 winners who were selected by our technology guru, Eric. using an online program that randomly selects people. And then we will take your questions. And I regret to say I have not been looking at the question box. We'll see if there are questions, and then we'll answer them. Before we get to that, I wanted to tell you that next month's webinar is on May 22nd, and it is titled The Financial Challenges of Addiction, Tools to Help Addicts, Their Families, and Clinicians. We have two great specialists and speakers, Jessica Sawyer and Anthony Weathers, and I know that's going to be a great webinar too. And here is our surprise. We have a couple hundred people on this call, so if you aren't one of our winners, and we've never given away any certifications before, but I really wanted to end Financial Capability Month with a bang, and so we will be giving those 5 away in just 1 minute, and I wanted everyone to feel that they were glad that they attended today. Well, I know you're all glad that you got to hear all this important information, or I hope you are anyway. And by the way, this recording will be posted on our website sometime in the next 2 days, and if you're registered, you'll get an email telling you that it's been posted. So we are giving everyone with us today $100 off of a certification. So our $349 certification from now, well, from tomorrow through the 16th, which is a Tuesday. Anyone that wants to purchase, and we've never done this before either, and this was Eric's idea. He said it has to be $100 to be worthwhile. So we're offering you the certification for $249. At checkout, you would enter FSW 100 to receive the discounted price. And so we encourage you to visit our website where you can register for our twice-monthly newsletter with the 10 best money articles from across the internet. And you can follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. And here we go. We are going to announce our winners, and then I will be answering questions. And I want to be sure to thank all of you for joining us today, and I hope you'll join us in the future. If I had a way to do a drum roll, it would be right here and now, and I hope I pronounced these names right. I'm not going to get this first one right. Our first winner is Christine TVEDT. Congratulations, Christine. Our second winner is Audrey Terry. Congratulations to you. Julie Falle, F-A-L-L-E, is our third winner. And our fourth winner is Mirella Zapita. And our fifth and final winner of the free certification is Joe Toman, T-O-M-A-N. I hope all of you will use these well and enjoy them. We will be emailing you additional details, those winners, on how to access the program and get started. So now to questions. Let's see if we have any questions. All right. Okay. Christine emailed and thanked me for winning. Okay. Will the slides be available to print? No, but the recording will be available to watch within the next 48 hours. And you'll get that email telling you when it's on the site, and you can watch them. Someone wrote that they think that people are afraid of the financial literacy term. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Okay. Okay, and someone wrote, I think labeling financial education as only applying to people in poverty is too limited. I see a lot of clients who are that's very interesting, are well above poverty level, who need to learn about how money and money management works. Oh, I just couldn't agree with you more, Laurel. That is so absolutely true. And to be honest, I don't think we would be in the situation that we're in this country if more people were more financially capable, right? I mean, seriously. And I certainly, through the years, have had many people call to take the certification and say, I need this as much as my clients do. And that's a really big problem in this country, I think. I mean, we just don't have somewhere for people to go to learn it, and especially since it isn't taught in schools. Okay, one seminar I attended said to be careful about giving out info when making purchases because of identity theft. Well, I'm not sure what that question is. I mean, that's a huge, huge, huge problem in this country today. And it isn't just online. Actually, a year or two ago, I did a webinar, and in doing some research, I would have thought that more identity thefts took place online than in person. But that's really not the reality. More takes place in person. You know, people scan your credit card, copy the number. You do need to be very careful. You would prefer not to have anyone take your credit card out of your sight, but that's not going to happen if you're paying in a restaurant. I mean, it's going to leave you. That's a huge topic. It's a huge problem, and maybe I will do a webinar on it. And I've read things that say that identity theft is on the rise, and I've seen it say that identity theft is declining. But I know for a fact, because my daughter-in-law's identity was stolen, it can be a nightmare. So yes, absolutely try to protect your information as best you can. I think there should be a mandatory class for anyone before they open their first bank account. Ah, fabulous. Actually, fabulous. When I taught the first graduate level course at the University of Maryland on financial social work, there was a student from California who told us that before they could take a student loan in undergraduate school, they were required to take a course on student loans and what that looked like. How terrific is that? Think of how that could have helped so many of the young people burdened with so many school loans today. I think that this should be taught very early on. Oh, so early on. Do you believe there's a way for everyone to get out of poverty, or are you saying maintaining the level of poverty in which a person resides? I am absolutely saying there is a way for everyone to get out of poverty. Do I think that that's likely to happen? Honestly, not really, but I think that if we really make the commitment to, you know, financial capability, to a more behavioral model, I mean, we can teach clients, lecture them, give them handouts on getting banked, on credit cards, on all kinds of materials. But if they don't see that as relevant to their own lives, we're not going to get them to make any change. And besides that, you know, my motto is education, motivation, and support on an ongoing basis. Those are the three components for creating sustainable change. In this case, sustainable financial behavioral change. We can't just say, okay, we've taught you about budgets, we've taught you about reducing credit card debt, we've taught you this, that, or the other, and now good luck and goodbye. Well, knowledge and information do not translate to change. Okay, your focus, I get a little excited, sorry about that. Your focus on hope is a great reminder. I am more pragmatic, so leaving hope out is something I need to be aware of. Thanks for the reminder. You are so welcome. Okay, Nikki says thank you. Is there a certificate for attendance? No, no certificate for attendance. Is the May 22nd webinar free? All our webinars are free. Would you share a few examples of where you've had success? Oh, I would so love to. Let me finish up with that, and first see if I can answer some of the other questions. You framed the significance of financial education around poverty statistics. Do changes in federal legislation, such as the 2005 bankruptcy law changes you mentioned, or the Graham-Leach-Biley Act, and the decrease in pensions, for example, bear any significance on how much the consumer is required to know about finances? Whoa, that's a question and a half. Well, actually, my first slide very much talked about how the financial landscape in this country is so fluid, how it's always changing. Now, you've mentioned two laws here that I'm not even familiar with. So I obviously can't speak to how beneficial or how valuable they are to those living in poverty or to the rest of us on this call, but you clearly are working in this field, and so you understand that there is relevance to that. I think it's terribly important that we stay abreast of this information. You know, I could have asked how many people were familiar with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I mean, that is such a wonderful change. How much it will accomplish, in my opinion, remains to be seen. How about credit card reform? There were some good pieces there. Not nearly enough, but some of the resulting outcomes impact all of our lives. So I would have to say, for me, as I told you, it isn't just about people living in poverty. That it's I was using you know, financial problems and living in poverty as interchangeable. There's so much, and you know, that's why we do the our newsletter, the 10 Best Money Articles, twice a month, because we look for the articles that we think will impact our community's lives the most, and which certainly are important to our students and graduates. And we create specific student and graduate content every Friday. It's exclusively for our students and graduates because we know specifically what they need and want in life. Thank you for making the audio available for review. Although I was taking notes, I look forward to pondering and taking it in thoughtfully. You're welcome, and I hope you can always go back to the recording. I think there are cultural sensitivities to money education. Have you found that a successful approach to financial education is culturally based? Absolutely. In the ebook that comes out tomorrow, under the best practices, I absolutely talk about the need to respect. While the basics of money don't change by culture, religion, gender, age, those components influence and impact how we do our money, and they've got to be incorporated into how we work with clients, and that's part of remembering that each client is unique, and this isn't about one size fits all. If we remember to find out, you know, what resonates for the client, what help the client understand what's in it for me, then we have the tools to keep the client, you know, to engage the client, and then to keep the client motivated and on track for change. Oh, I just want to spend so much time answering your questions. It seems people think the term financial education, when used in advertising and marketing programs to low-income population, is advanced financial information instead of basic information. What do you think is a better term to use? Financial capabilities is resonating for me more and more. Um, that's a really quick, short answer to a long question. If any of you really want to dialogue about this, you can call us on our 800 number. It's on our website. You can email us from the website, and I'll always be happy to schedule a time to speak with you and answer your questions. Oh, on the slide you stated the term feminomics. Feminomics is a word I created and licensed back in 1997, and I can't go into all the details now, but because I created and licensed it, I gave it the definition of the gender of money. And for me, the gender of money means the fact that women traditionally earn less and are charged more, and because we live longer, 75% of the elderly living below the poverty line are women. And you can read a little bit about that on the website. And the last question before I go back to share some examples. To download the ebook tomorrow, will the site have a link to allow us to do so? If you register for the newsletter, you'll get that announcement tomorrow, and I'm sure that Eric will have it posted on the website and have a landing page for it. Can you please repeat the information on the winners for the drawing? I apologize, my phone rang. I'm not sure what information that is. Winners will be contacted via email and told how to set up the account to download the workbooks. And that looks like the last question, so I'm just going oh, great. Wait, some more coming in. You said to start teaching children early. How early is early? And what are the basics to start off? Always age appropriately. Very, very important to do so age appropriately. I don't know that it's ever too early. I mean, obviously, a 2 or 3-year-old isn't going to understand, but you know, that isn't too young to at least be talking with your children about the fact that they can't have everything that they see, to start putting things into context. I know organizations who start working with children at 4 on specific parts of money, and then have their children, the children bring these things home, and these are some Head Start programs, to the parents, and they have to go over it with the parents. And so now we have the children teaching the parents. I think that is so fabulous. There are some wonderful children's books. Okay, there's someone on the call who works with very young children who's telling me to tell you that at the age of 4 they can begin to learn the foundation. And I also wanted to tell you there are some wonderful children's books on money that just provide you a wealth of information, not in some lecturing form, but just in very colorful ways. And I know there are some preschool programs online. Rob, do you know of any specifically? Or there are comic books out there, and there are all kinds of games on the internet, and probably if you look for those, if you Google those, you'll have more success than I had when I Googled the history of financial literacy. Success examples. The first one that always comes to mind, and just is actually my very favorite, is the fact that there is a United Way in Virginia that has used our client program. Well, first they certified 20 volunteers, and then they've used our client program, Taking Charge, for the past 4 or 5 years, and probably have had over those years several hundred people go through it. But from the very first training of 50 students who were single moms, we have then gone on to certify those clients to become financial social work educator coaches who can stand in front of a group of new clients and say to them, you know, I once sat where you're sitting, and I did it and used it to change my life, and you can too. That's always been a vision for my work, because when we tell clients what to do or how to do it, we still own it. But when clients tell each other and they take ownership of it, it is really, really powerful. Have I heard of Bridges Out of Poverty? I have heard of Bridges Out of Poverty, but I cannot honestly comment, answer your question on what do I think about it. If I'm correct, I thought it sounded like a really amazing program, but I can't really, I'm sorry, I can't give you more feedback than that. But again, if you want to email me or call me, I would be more than happy to look into it with you. And so, this has been a very long conference call. It sounds like the program I was just talking about. Oh, Financial Peace. Financial Peace is Dave Ramsey. It's very popular with churches. It's a more religiously slanted program, and it's pretty expensive, and no, it is not what I would consider a behavioral model. Some of you are emailing your thanks, and you're so welcome. Thanks for joining us. I hope you'll join us in the future, and I am going, thank you for your thank yous. I'm going to finish up now and wish you all a more money-wise day, and hope to hear from you soon. Bye now.